What are some good tips for a Bachur in Yeshiva who is struggling and not having a good year so far, and he's upset every day in Yeshiva? That question was signed by everybody. In the name of all Bachurim all over the world, can you answer this question? Of course, it depends on the individual. You can't give a general answer. But, in general, the reason a Bachur would be upset or struggling is because he doesn't understand. When you don't really understand what you're learning, it becomes very, very difficult. If a day goes by, you sat in yeshiva, and you didn't learn anything. Not you didn't learn, but you didn't learn anything. You cannot tell anybody what you learned today, because it's not clear to you. You don't really understand it. That's what makes yeshiva a struggle. That's what makes it uncomfortable. That's what makes it unhappy. And that can be fixed. Make sure you understand something. Make sure you come away with some information. You learn something. You know something. You now have more ideas than you had before. That's all it takes. You have to feel like you accomplished something. It's terrible to sit all day and at the end of the day feel, I didn't accomplish anything. So it's very important that you get to really understand what you're learning. Not all of it, some of it, something. But if you come away and you don't feel like you learned something, it's going to be a struggle. It's not a happy situation. There's a difference between learning and learning something. You can sit and learn all day, and at the end of the day you don't know anything. I don't know why they call it learning, but it's called learning. If you sit over a sefer and you say the words, it's called learning. But is it really? Does it feel like you learned something? If it doesn't, then that has to be fixed. You have to come away knowing something that you can explain to other people. And if you don't have that, then sit down with somebody, go over to the Rosh Yeshiva and say, explain this to me until you understand it. Sometimes you want to learn. You really do. And you want to learn so much that you can't learn anything. You want to understand, and that gets in the way. So every day you're disappointed. Because every day you come and you want to learn, and you want to know, and every day you come home and you don't know. Of course that's frustrating. That's very painful. So make sure that every day you come home at the end of the day with something you really know. And don't stop until you really know it. I spoke to Bachurim who are already out of yeshiva. And they admit that in all the years that they were in the yeshiva, they never really understood anything. They chazed my modern balpeh, they read sichas, they even chazed the sicha. But can they say that they understood it? No. How do you know when you really understand something? What's the test? Number one, if you can say it in your own words. So you finish learning a sicha, or you finish learning a Tosfos. Ask yourself, what do I now know? And say it to yourself in your own words. There's something very holy about chazering the Lashon Harav. To memorize a maimer word for word, very holy. But that's not called knowing. In order to feel like you really know it, you have to say it in your words. So at the end of a maimer, at the end of a sicha, you ask yourself, what did I just learn? And don't repeat the words of the sicha. Say your own words. That's why for many people, when they hear a sicha in English, they understand it. They can read the same sicha 12 times in Yiddish or then in Lashon Kodesh, and they don't understand it. They hear it once in English. Oh, that's what it means. So you have to touch it up for yourself until you understand it. How do you know that you finally got it? If you can explain it to somebody else. So after learning a sicha, ask yourself, if I had to explain the sicha to someone who never learned Chassidus, how would I say it? What would I say? If you can do that, then you have learned something. Even if it's one sentence. But you realize, when you do understand something, you realize that you have a brain. You know what it feels like to understand. And that's the beginning of menschlichkeit. That's the beginning of being an adult. You really understand. You got it. So well that you can explain it to somebody else. So try it just today. By the end of the day today, you should know something that you can explain to me. In your own words. It'll change everything. It'll be like the beginning of a new life. And then it won't feel like you're struggling. The fact that you don't know everything, you don't know the entire Gemara that you learned today, you don't know the whole Sicha, you don't know the whole Maimer, that's okay. You learn in small pieces. But you have to know something. You have to be able to come home and explain to your brother, to your mother, to your father, this is what I learned, and this I understand.